All right, I'm not really sure why the intro video didn't work because nothing's changed, so I'll have to look into that. Anyway, welcome to the Skywatcher What's Up webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific. Um, Usually we have an intro video and it's supposed to play and do all this cool stuff, and for whatever reason it didn't want to listen to me today, so no idea why. Anyway, it's Friday. It is November 10th, 2023. Thank you all for joining us again for another What's Up webcast episode. This is the first episode in the time change, so until somewhere in March, because for whatever reason we can't just stay in certain time zones. Beauty of living in Arizona, we all have to change our clocks. But yeah, so today is the first episodes that start at 11 a.m., at least my time, but everything's been shifted. It's still 10 a.m. Pacific time, but there's a time change, of course, now. So please keep that in mind over the next few months until we get to, I think, around March is when it'll all go back to time again. But anyway, thanks for joining us this morning. Like I said, it's November 10th, 2023. Today we're talking about tabletop dobs, and particularly our tabletop dobs, the Heritage series and the Virtuoso GTi series. And there's a lot of other tabletop dobs out there that are really cool, but we're going to talk about ours because they're cool and awesome. And they make really good holiday gifts, by the way, which are right around the corner. And I wouldn't wait very long to get your equipment. But if you like what you see here on the What's Up webcast, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a like on a video. If you have an idea for an episode, please email us at info@skywatcherusa.com. Title it What's Up. We have, we're starting to plan 2024, which is hard to believe, but yeah, we are planning 2024 episodes. And we could use some ideas for what you guys would like to see. So email us and see what you think. If you like what you see here also, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like on a video. It lets us know we're doing a good job. If you want to keep up with what's happening at Skywatcher, whether it's the What's Up webcast or sales, because there's a ton of stuff going on sale right now, you can head over to skywatcherusa.com, and up at the top you can hit subscribe and save. Join our email list, and you'll get emails saying all the cool stuff that's actually happening, as well as weekly emails about what's going on the What's Up webcast as well. So let's talk tabletop dobs. Oh, real quick. If you need to get some cool swag, you can head over to skywatcher.threadless.com and get some cool swag for your holiday gifts if you need, or just whatever. We do have the Virtuoso GTi shirts. Highly recommend getting them in black. They look awesome. And you can have those to go along with your stuff as well as all kinds of cool stuff. We got all kinds of nifty things there. So head over to skywatcher.threadless.com and we will get that going. Let's see. And really quick, before we get into some stuff, we have a ton of sales that have opened up now for the holiday series. All of our optical tubes are on sale, or the majority of them are on sale. Esprits are on sale right now, which is really awesome. But as you can see, there's a ton of stuff that's on sale right now. So if you've been eyeing something, now is the time to get it. And if you go to our website, by the way, and you see this add to cart button, now you can buy right off of our website if you'd like, and it ships right from our warehouse to you. Or you can work with your favorite dealer. It doesn't really matter how you want to go about it. But if you're perusing the Skywatcher website and you happen to see something that you like and it has a green button, it's in stock, it's ready to go. But just because we don't have it in stock doesn't mean our dealers might not have it in stock. So just because our website might be out, our dealers stock stuff as well. So if you don't see it here, ask your favorite dealer and see what you can get from there. Haven't gotten totem patches yet. We haven't shipped the totem patches for last month yet. We're doing that next week, so everything will be going out next week. Anyway, that is the announcements before we get started. All right, let's talk about tabletop dobs. So I'm sure a lot of you are aware what a dobsonian is. A dobsonian is it's basically a Newtonian telescope that sits on a Lazy Susan style mount. And it's very easy to just point and look wherever you want. Dobsonians are generally known for having decent to large apertures, so you can see very faint, far away things, have good resolution without really breaking the bank in comparison to other optical designs. Now, tabletop dobs kind of shrink that idea down to a telescope that easily fits on your table. Like that. That's a Heritage 150 in the back there on the table. So these small telescopes are perfect for beginners. They're great as little just throw out in the backyard and go look. They're just good grab and go telescopes because these are real telescopes. But these are great for viewing, just going out and looking. Very quick to set up. You don't need to polar align them. They hold their optical alignment, which is known as collimation, very well. And the nice thing about these is ours are collapsible, so they're fairly small for travel and transport. Now, tabletop dobs, there's a lot of them on the market. They usually generally fall between like a 3-inch aperture to about a 6-inch aperture. And then obviously you move up to more of the larger sizes and dobsonians, and those become more full-size telescopes. But I would like to let you know, if you are in the market for a tabletop dob, maybe you're new to telescopes, the optics in these things can vary. A traditional Newtonian or Dobsonian telescope uses a parabolic primary mirror. Some of the cheaper telescopes out there get away with using spherical mirrors, and that is okay for wide field of viewing. It's very easy to make a spherical mirror. Actually, a sphere is actually the easiest optical curve you can actually make. Shape is actually that you can make from a sphere. You then parabolize, getting a parabola, and then you go on from there. But a sphere is very easy, but you get what's called spherical aberration, and usually if it's low power, you can get away with it. But a lot of the less expensive telescopes on the market that are Newtonians of some kind are spherical. So when you're looking for a telescope, look through the specifications on their information mirror, or on their information spec sheets, and they should list what the figure of the mirror actually is, and you'll probably notice that it's spherical. Ideally, if you want a real Newtonian telescope that's going to give you the best images, you want a parabolic primary mirror. That is a real Newtonian telescope at that point. Now, our tabletop dobs, the Heritage 130, the 150, as well as our Virtuoso models, they're all parabolic mirrors. So make sure to look in what's going on there. So let's talk about the Heritage series. The Heritage, these are small little telescopes. They're 5 and 6 inches in aperture, but these are real Newtonian telescopes. Like I said earlier, they use parabolic primary mirrors, and they're built from the ground up to be a quality instrument. While small and affordable, they're not toys. They are a real telescope for you to enjoy the nighttime sky. Now, the unique thing about our particular models is they're collapsible. A lot of tabletop dobs, you're just getting the whole tube, and they're already small as it is. Wouldn't it be nice to have a bigger telescope that's compact? You can just pop in the car, go camping with. Maybe you're just going out in the backyard. You want something easy. These collapse, so you can see just like that. So the tube on the left is fully extended, and the tube on the right is fully retracted. This makes it really easy and small for you to put it on a shelf or store it somewhere. And then the cap actually pops on top of the upper cage there, is what we call it, which is this portion right here. The cap goes on there, and it seals the whole tube up nice and tight, and it keeps things from, getting dirty. So the collapsible feature is actually a pretty nice thing here, because it's still giving you that tube, and it's allowing you to have a larger system, but it's still maintaining a small footprint for storage. Now, like I said, these are available in 2 sizes. We have the 130 millimeter, which is on the left, and it has the all the astronomer names, a lot of famous astronomers on the tube there. And then we also have the 150 millimeter f5, which has our typical black diamond finish, but it's a larger instrument. And this is it back here. This is my 150 Heritage. And they're really nice little telescopes. They use Teflon pads on their bases, so they're really smooth. And the tubes actually mount with a standard V-style dovetail plate. And the advantage of that is you could take the tube off of here and you could put it on like an AZ GTi or some other kind of mount if you want go-to, and you can easily pop that onto something else if you want to. These are not permanently mounted. You can dismount them from the base and use them on other mounts if you needed to, which is a nice feature there. Now, these particular telescopes, they come with a 25 millimeter and a 10 millimeter eyepiece, 1.25 inches. These are just basic 1.25 inches. They come with a red dot finder, and all the mirrors are actually 94% reflectivity coatings. So you're getting really high quality reflectivity coatings. We call them RAQ, RAQ coatings, radiant aluminum quartz coatings. But like I said, they're 94% reflectivity, so you're getting a very good quality there. And they're completely collimatable, which is another thing that you're going to have a hard time finding in a cheaper Newtonian design. A lot of companies just let you collimate the secondary mirror. Some don't let you collimate it at all. But here's the thing about these particular telescopes is we're trying to actually get you into the hobby, and we want you to have a good time. But with a new hobby and with new equipment also comes the standard maintenance and understanding how to maintain a telescope effectively. Because over time, maybe you'll start with something like this, but maybe down the road you'll want to get into astrophotography, or you'll want a larger telescope. And one of those things that you need to maintain in a telescope, depending on the design, particularly with Newtonians as well as some of the Cassegrain reflectors, is you need to learn how to collimate or align the optics in your telescope. That can be kind of a scary thing, but it's not a really big deal. But what is nice to do is that you can learn on something small like this, and that way you can kind of get the jitters out and you become more comfortable with it. Because if you can collimate one of these, you can collimate pretty much any other Newtonian telescope that's available. And these allow you to adjust not only the primary, but the secondary as well. So they're real telescopes all the way through. You've got a real parabolic mirror. You've got really good coatings on it, and both mirrors are actually allowed to be aligned to one another, and the primary is also center marked for both of them. So this is a true telescope, and with that you can learn all the basic maintenance of a real telescope as well. And you won't have to mess with these too much, but it's still good to have the opportunity and ability to adjust and learn how to handle a telescope, because it's just what you should do. You know, if you get a camera or you get something, whatever your hobby is, you should know the general maintenance of your instrumentation or whatever that you're using at that time. Now, the Virtuoso GTi is basically expand beyond the Heritage series. So we then took these tubes, the 130 and the 150 collapsible optical tubes that you see here. They're the same telescopes themselves, but they are now added to a whole new base. Now, these, like I said earlier, they're true Newtonian telescopes, parabolic, fully collimatable, which is all awesome. The tubes collapse like we talked about earlier, but these are fully go-to systems. So they can be powered by either 8 AA batteries, but they have built-in Wi-Fi, so you can control it with our SynScan Pro app. And if you're a big fan of Sky Safari, like myself and so many others, you would do the basic alignment in our SynScan Pro app, and that's free for both Android and iOS. You would do your alignment in there. You can also control the telescope if you want, but if you want to have that planetarium experience, you would then switch over to Sky Safari Pro or whatever it is, whatever variations actually control telescopes now. And you could actually control that with Sky Safari apps at that point as well. So the built-in Wi-Fi is there for you to control it. You do have a hand controller port, so if you wanted to use one of our SynScan controllers, which are available separately, and you want something that's a little bit more of a tactile function there, you can add one of our SynScan hand controllers, and the controllers ship with the right cables. So you get the controller, pop that in, and you now have the hand controller there if you want the go-to capability as well. Now, these also have what's called Freedom Find, and on these particular telescopes, that's actually pretty cool. So Freedom Find means there's an extra set of encoders inside the mount. So normally the way a telescope keeps position is as the motors move it across the sky, there's a little wheel in there, and there's a little beam of light that shoots through the wheel or reads these little tick marks on this wheel, and it just counts how many ticks that went by. But with that capability, which is known as an encoder, it allows the telescope to keep position once it's been aligned by the owner of the telescope. However, one of the defaults of that kind of system is that if you bump your telescope, the encoders don't react to the movement of the telescope if it's bumped or moved manually. It's only reading it as the gears and the motors actually move the telescope across the sky. Now, what Freedom Find does is there's an extra set of encoders located elsewhere inside the mount on each axis. So you can actually disengage the clutches and actually move the telescope around just like a normal Dobsonian, and it keeps its alignment. And then when you're on target again, you just lock the encoders down and it goes back to tracking, but it never lost its original alignment. So this is a really cool little outreach telescope too, because as someone who does outreach a lot, what happens is, you know, people bump the telescope and you lose the alignment. You have to go back. And what's great about these is if they do get bumped, you just slew, you know, I want to go back to Saturn. You find Saturn, you click it, hit slew, and it goes right back because it knows that it's been moved. Now, you can turn these encoders on and off too. But Freedom Find is a very cool thing. And it's in all of our larger Dobsonians as well. But we did put it in the Virtuoso GTi series. So it's pretty neat that you have that capability to not only use this as a go-to system, but you can also use it like a typical Dobsonian as well with tracking, which is pretty nice. There's a couple questions in here. What is the glass type of the primary mirror and the Heritage, that's Virtuosos? They should be borosilicate. They look... Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's borosilicate glass. I have a really early sample, so most of the samples are going to have a fogged back, like most mirrors do. For whatever reason, on the early sample that I have, and I know some of you might freak out about this in a good way, but, oh my god. Try not to drop this little thing. You can see how easy that was to pull off. So there's the dovetail. This was an early production prototype-ish, so the other ones are a little bit different. But mine is a polished back primary, which is pretty sweet. So they actually took the time to polish the back of the mirror so you can see the aluminum in there. But that should be a borosilicate glass blank right there, and then they're figured up at the front. But yours, when you get it, it's going to be just a typical frosted back. You won't have the... you won't be able to see through the mirror there, which I think it's pretty neat. But yeah, these look like borosilicate primaries. Borosilicate's basically the equivalent of Pyrex, because Pyrex has been discontinued for several years. But all of our Dobs pretty much use borosilicate. Let's see. Once a Heritage and its go-to sister are collapsed and brought back to the used position, do they need to be recollimated each time? Not particularly. So the one nice thing about the this goes for all of our collapsible Dobs, not just these little ones, but all the way up to our 16-inch. The collapsible feature of this is really quite nice as an owner of a few truss dobsonians over the years. A lot of times with a truss dobsonian, the advantage of something like that allows you to have a more compact setup on a larger aperture system, but you have to assemble it each time, and collimation generally needs to be done every time. Now, the nice thing about these is you just loosen the two locking screws that are located on each truss, or strut in this case, and you push down, and it collapses into this nice little compact setup right there. But because the poles keep everything basically centered, there is no dismantling of it or anything like that. They allow it to be very repeatable. They lock in place. There's little locks in here. So if you look close on the poles, I don't know if you can see, there's actually these little indents on the poles right about there. So when you extend this upward, you hear it lock in place. It locks because we don't want this collapsing down when you're trying to reach and actually tighten the lock screws there. But because of all that, it's very repetitive and allows the collimation to pretty much be maintained. And I check it every time just to be safe, but it's usually really close. But it doesn't hurt to check it. And there went my eyepiece. But yeah, that's a pretty good little thing there. Is the Virtuoso GTi available as the base only? Not currently in the North American region. Maybe other divisions do sell it separately, but we don't currently sell it separately. It comes packed with the Virtuoso GTi 130 and 150. And we may have another configuration coming out soon. You'll just have to wait. But no, there's no plans to have just the mount available at this time. So these can be powered. You can either run it off of 12-volt batteries, like a Celestron Power Tank Lithium Pro. You can run it off of 8 AA's if you really want to, but I really prefer running these off of a 12-volt battery. You can also run them off of AC. If you have a 2.1 12-volt, probably 2-amp AC adapter, Celestron sells them. That's the ones we use. You can actually power these in the backyard with like an extension cable and just an AC adapter. If you don't want to deal with any of that, you could do a little battery pack for in the field that'll run it multiple nights. Or you can run it on batteries. I'm not a big fan of the AA batteries, but for starters, it's a good way to go. My 16 has gotten harder and harder to extend, sometimes takes 2 people. So that's probably because the struts over time, not so much the struts, but the pads inside the locks that hold the struts, you get dirt and grime because there is a little bit of grease to help lubricate that bearing material. What I like to do is I actually like to take like a microfiber cloth and actually wipe down the struts. If you really have to, you can actually take at the bottom for these are for the collapsible, like the 8-inch to 16s. On the bottom of each strut, there are hard stops. They look like little flanges. They got a little rubber ring around them, but there's 2 holes in there, like for a spanner wrench. You can actually unthread those hard stops. And you can pull those struts out. Now, I will warn you that those strut locks on all 3 struts on the larger models, they have a tensioner screw on the side. It's not the silver locking nut. It's the tensioner. It's a black anodized knob-looking thing. That tensioner has a spring load ball bearing inside of it. So if you're going to take out the struts completely to clean the Teflon material in there or the poles and clean the dirt and the grime out, which is probably why it's binding, you want to unthread those spring load tensioners. So you unthread it, that'll release the tension of the spring. Make sure you do not lose these parts because we don't regularly have them because they're very rarely asked for. So make sure you have like a tray or something. There's 3 of each. There's 3 tension knobs, 1 for each lock. There's 3 springs, 1 for each lock. And then there's the ball bearing itself that locks that in there. All 3 of those pieces, you should have 3 of each. Once that's been removed, you can slide the whole upper cage with the struts out. You can wipe all the surfaces, wipe down each strut. And then inside, you'll probably notice the Teflon surface in there. The bearing material is probably pretty gunked up over the years. You can go ahead and clean that. Sometimes I've had people add just a really fine amount of like a Teflon lubricant of some kind. That should help clean up and smooth that out again. But it's basically just dirt and grime that sits on those poles. And when you slide that in and out over countless times, it just gunks up the bearing material and makes it really hard. So that would be my recommendation, but make sure you don't lose any of that stuff. So the Virtuoso GTi, just like the other 2, comes in the 130 and the 150. They're both f5 telescopes, so you have a 5-inch and a 6-inch. Now, these telescopes are pretty significant because they are a 5 and 6-inch. And let's do the math a little bit here. Let's just compare it to some popular telescopes out there. Like the 5-inch. Let's start with a 5-inch. Now, I know someone brought up a... let's start with a 6-inch, actually. Someone brought up like the library loaner telescopes. Now, for a long time, they've been these little 4.5-inch tabletop dobs. Those are great little telescopes. However, for a little bit more, you could actually get the Virtuoso GT for one of the either the Heritage or the Virtuoso 6-inch, the 150 millimeter models. Going from a 4.5-inch to a 6-inch is 80% more light. That's very significant there. So the images are going to be 80% brighter going from 4.5 to 6, and for not much bigger of a footprint. So that's something that you might consider if you're considering a library program, loaner telescope program, is that 6-inch for just probably $100 and something more is going to give you 80% more light capability than like a 4.5-inch. Now, if you're getting something, let's compare the 5-inch, the 130 model. Let's say you bought a little 80 millimeter refractor off of like Amazon or something. There's a lot of these really inexpensive, cheap little achromat refractors out there that people get. Maybe it's a 3-inch or something like that. The 5-inch models, the Virtuosos or the Heritage, are going to give you 2.8 times, almost 3 times the light gathering power of just a standard little 80 millimeter refractor. So that aperture is a big play in you being able to get brighter images and seeing further out into space. So that 5 or 6-inch aperture, including the mount, is pretty good. And the Virtuoso GTIs one up that even further because they have go-to on them. And both of them are less than about... let me double check this before I actually say this. Well, let's just bring it up real quick, shall we? Let's see. So there you go. There's the Virtuoso GTi 150 and the 130. They're both under $500. So you're getting a 5 or a 6-inch telescope. They're real telescopes, and you're getting go-to for under $500. That's pretty awesome at that point. Let's see. Where is it? Are the arms sturdy to be used for imaging if you take it on equatorial mount? Are you trying to equatorially mount the Virtuoso GTi? If you are, I guess you could, but I don't know that it would work. This should be working. They should work just fine. There's actually a YouTuber, I don't know his name. I should have looked it up. I think he's in Europe somewhere, who does some really impressive what's called lucky imaging with the Virtuoso GTIs. Lucky imaging is where you just use it in alt-az mode and you shoot a ton of short exposures, and then you stack them. So no equatorial mode. Very, very simple. You're just using the camera's sensitivity and short exposure capability, and you're actually stacking them over and over and over again, and you're getting an image that way. So you could do something like Lucky Imaging if you want, and with these, and they work pretty well. Can you take the OTAs off? You can take the optical tube assemblies off the mount. They do have the standard V-style dovetail plates, which pretty much any mount on the market has now. And you could mount that to an equatorial, and you could do some imaging with it. I would let you know that these use a helical focuser. And a helical, let me see if I can show you guys this. A helical focuser is not the most exact and precise focuser in the world. Basically how these work is their assemblies are threaded, and then they thread into the little upper cage region right here, right about there. This is the helical assembly. They're just threaded. I don't know if you can see that very well. Some people feel that there's a little bit of slop left and right, and what people like to do to smooth that out is they put some of this Teflon tape, like for plumbing. They'll put Teflon tape on the threads, and that really smooths out that focuser to be more precise. That's kind of a little mod, if you will. Mine's got that. I loaned it to a friend, and he did it for that. But it actually does help. So if you get one of these and you want to smooth that focuser out a bit, just get some white Teflon tape and wrap the threads just a little bit, and it does help smooth out the motions. But like I said, I've had people image with these before, but the focuser on these telescopes are not ultra precise like our dual speeds and stuff like that on like refractors and our imaging telescopes. So just keep in mind that these are sub $500 Newtonians, and they're not intended to be used for imaging, but I've seen some pretty impressive stuff for it. So let's see what else is going on in here. Now let me talk to you a little bit about the Virtuoso GTi mount itself. This is an alt-as go-to mount, and it has 11-pound payload capacity. So if you get one of these and you want to take the tube off and you want to put something else on it, you can do a bunch of things with it. Our friends at Star Arizona actually have a C6 on theirs, and they put a hyperstar on it, and they're imaging with that. So it's a fun little astrograph setup. So 11-pound payload capacity. It is alt-as, has go-to. It does have that freedom find capability where you can disengage the clutches, move it around, and try to take a picture of it, or move it around without losing the actual alignment that you've done through the mount. Now you can control it with Wi-Fi or a hand controller. The hand controllers are optional. You can add that later if you want. A lot of people just end up using the Wi-Fi. It does have a standard V-style dovetail saddle, so you can basically mount anything you want as long as it clears the lower part of the base, and it has a V-style dovetail plate, so the mount can hold a decent amount of stuff. Now, what's unique about the Virtuoso GTi mount as opposed to just the manual Heritage telescopes is they have a 3/8 tripod mounting block on the bottom there. So what that allows you to do is these are not just tabletops anymore. You could mount that to a decent size photo tripod that has a 3/8 thread. You could mount that to a Star Adventure tripod, which we have available, to raise it up, and you could actually use it as more of a actual telescope, and it's not just required for sitting low on the ground or up on a table. So that's a nice thing about the Virtuoso GTIs is you do have the ability to get it up off the ground and a little bit higher up to make it more usable. Do these Heritage and Virtuoso scopes come with a skirt? Like a shroud? No, we don't have a shroud for it. There are a few people that like to do like a Kydex kind of shroud. There's a whole thing on Cloudy Nights, the forum website, about how people make shrouds for it. But I've seen people use like foam. I've seen people use plastic. I'd love it if we were able to come out with a little shroud for them, but we haven't had one out yet. Now, like I said earlier, these mounts can be driven by either 8 AA batteries. I would highly recommend either using like a external battery pack. I use the Celestron Power Tank lithium packs. They last a lot longer, especially if you're going out camping or you're going to go to a star party or something like that and you want to get multiple uses out of it. I would definitely recommend using some kind of power pack on it. Like I said, the Celestron Power Tanks, the lithium ones, are really nice to have. And then, of course, if you're at home, you can use a 12-volt AC power adapter. Like a 2 amp one is perfectly fine. Or if you really need to, you can use AA's. Now, if you're trying to get the dimensions of how big this little guy actually is, they're not too large. They're 13.5 inches by 18 inches, 18.5. So they're not very big, and they only weigh 11 pounds. So the whole telescope is less than 20 pounds with the mount. So it doesn't take up a lot of space. It's not too heavy to work with. Do these need a dew shield like an SCT? Not really. Most Newtonians don't need a dew shield. I guess if you're in a very, very moist environment that has a lot of dew in it, you could make a dew shield that extends out away from the tube, and that would help reduce some glare that's coming into the tube. They do have, let's see if I can get this up again. They do have a back baffle, especially on the 150. It's a little bit bigger, but you can see right there opposite the focuser, they do have a baffle on the back there, so it helps keep the background black and reduce any kind of glare. But if you're in a, like I said, a very dewy environment, you could make some kind of extension. I've seen people do it with like Kydex, which is a kind of plastic that extends out from the tube. But a lot of people will actually make a shroud which covers this particular middle portion of the optical path, and that way you're not getting any external glare entering the telescope and throwing off your views and stuff like that. And that's going to be much more common in like a light polluted sky area for there. But that kind of wraps up a lot of it. We kind of blew through it. The telescopes are fairly simplistic telescopes. There's not a lot to them, as there is with some of the more advanced telescopes. But what's nice about them is they're a decent aperture. They're real telescopes, so you've got the real quality in there, so you can get out and you can start viewing. But they are great holiday gifts, so if you're looking to get a real telescope for somebody, most of these are in stock through us. I would check around through some of our dealers as well. The Virtuoso GTi 150 is obviously the most popular. It's not much more than the 130, but the 130s are in stock right now. We do not have any of the 150s available with us, but I would check some of our dealers because we have gotten shipments, but those get dispersed to the dealers because they've been waiting. So if you're looking for something like that for the holidays, these are excellent. They do come in a gift box, so when you get the actual shipping box, you can open up the shipping box, and inside is the actual gift box of the telescope in there, so it looked kind of cool. It also has a handle on it, so it makes it really kind of nice to store it until you can kind of figure out more of a storage way. Ed Ting, if you're not familiar with Ed Ting is with Scope Reviews. Scope Reviews is his website. He's been reviewing telescopes for decades at this point. Very respected in the amateur astronomy community. But he did a whole review on the Heritage Newtonians. So he's got, I think there might even be a video on YouTube about it. But he actually stores it in one of those like holiday plastic bins. And what's cool and what I like about the way he does that is the bin allows you to store it, and then you take that out and you put the telescope on top of the bin, on top of the lid. And now you have a place to actually set the telescope up on as well, and it's not just on the ground, or you're not needing a table or something like that. So that's kind of a cool 2-in-1, very simplistic little thing that you can actually just pick up from Target or, you know, wherever you get your stuff from, but just a storage bin to store the telescope. Keeps your telescope safe, and it gives you a place to actually utilize it when you're in the backyard. Now, again, as we approach the holidays a little bit more, I wouldn't be surprised to see some more sales coming from Skywatcher. Maybe some of the stuff that we've talked about might be going on sale. I can't confirm nor deny. But just giving you a heads up, there might be some more sales coming as we get towards the holidays, particularly on these telescopes and some other fun stuff. But that's pretty much it for this episode. I hope you like that. I know this might have been review for some of you. Some of you might already own it. But if you're looking for a real telescope, either to use as a grab-and-go instrument, maybe as an outreach telescope, maybe you're gifting it to somebody for the holidays, these are excellent telescopes. And because they're all under $500, even the go-to ones, it's kind of a steal for what you're getting. There's not much that can touch it for the size of telescope that you're actually getting as well. But you can see the moons of Jupiter. The moon looks great. The rings of Saturn. And with the 5 and the 6-inch apertures, you can really start to dig into the deep sky targets even more. And if you get a chance to take it to some dark skies, they're really impressive. Because a 5 and 6-inch telescope is a serious amount of light when you get to a dark location. Let's see. Is it any new APOs in the development? I'm not allowed to tell you any of the stuff that's in development. NDAs prevent me from telling you anything. But I will rest assured that when new products are ready to be announced, the What's Up Webcast is the place we generally announce them at. So 2024 is not far around the corner. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some new stuff coming from us next year. So we'll see what's on the burners, but yeah, there's nothing to really tell you about at the moment. So, but yes, thanks for the support there. Please go ahead and hit that like button on the video. It really lets us know we're doing a good job. If you like what you see here, please subscribe. And if you have any ideas for 2024 in terms of episodes, go ahead and email us at info@skywatcherusa.com and title it What's Up. We are looking for ideas for next year for the What's Up Webcast, which means we've been doing this a long time. We're almost to our 200th episode, which is crazy. But yeah, that's it for this week. Now, next week, we have our special guest, Will Young, also known as Deep Sky Dude. Will is a fantastic deep sky observer. If you've ever been to Okie-Tex or El Dorado Star Party or Texas Star Party, you've probably met or seen Will running around. Will is an amazing deep sky observer. He's also one of the people that got me into night vision observing. He's amazing with that, but he's also an awesome musician. He makes some really cool ambient music coming from the side of an astronomer. So it'll be kind of a eclectic conversation when we sit down with Will next week. That will be the final episode for November, because after that is Thanksgiving weekend and we're off with our family and friends and stuff like that for that weekend. So Will, next week, November 17th, is the last episode for November, and then we'll get back into it after Thanksgiving and we jump into December. And I think December is very similar. We are short one episode because, of course, we have the holidays that are at the end of the month there. And then after that, we start 2024 and the countdown to the April total solar eclipse, along with all kinds of other cool stuff. But other than that, that's what we've got for you this week. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it, and so does the rest of the Skywatcher team. If you like what you see here, please subscribe, leave a like on the videos, and all of you waiting for totem patches, they'll be heading out next week. We'll get that taken care of. If you have any questions on your Skywatcher product, please email us at support@skywatcherusa.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. And if you are in Phoenix and you want to get out to some dark skies this weekend, the East Valley Astronomy Club is hosting the All Arizona Star Party. It's out by Quartzsite, Arizona. I'll be there tomorrow night. Our tech support guy, Alex, is there tonight and tomorrow night. So stop by, say hi, and yeah, we'll talk to you then. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Clear skies. Get out to do dark sky viewing, and we will see you guys next week when we sit down with Will, Deep Sky Dude, and have a great weekend. Take care, everyone. See ya. Clear skies. Bye.